Welcome to From the Black Hole with Lars Lowther and Jeff Salisbury, and I'm Rob Notenboom. We're returning a week ahead of schedule so we can squeeze episode 4 into the few remaining days between now and MLS first kick. Today we're going to briefly go over the Canadian men's under-20 exit from the World Cup competition, and then we're going to turn our sights on TFC, Montreal, and Vancouver Whitecaps and talk about their preseasons and their prospects heading into the MLS regular season. So less than 24 hours have passed since our under-20 men disappointingly bowed out of the qualification tournament to go to the under-20 World Cup. All of us were watching that game. I think we thought our prospects were reasonably good to advance, but it wasn't to be. I think maybe we showed some flashes, but were overwhelmed by a U.S. attack that kind of had our number, I'm afraid. We're going to go to Lars, first of all, to talk a little bit about this. Lars, what are your views on the under-20 qualification campaign and maybe what this means for Canada in general going forward?
Well, it's always going to be difficult to make it to these Youth World Cups. It's always going to be difficult to make it to the Senior World Cup. We had a good group to start. The first game of the group kind of killed us, but with that loss to Cuba. And so this loss to the U.S. didn't really bother me as much. I kind of expected it. If you would have told me the score would have been 4-2 before the game, I would have been disappointed but unsurprised. With the whole lead up that we had into this game, it was they're the underdogs. They're going to be having their backs against the wall, and even the U.S. commentators, the idiots that they are, sort of figured that one out. But I guess what happened was, and Steve Sandor on our last podcast had made that comment about how it's part of that Canadian mythology where we pick that one goal that should have went in and it would have changed the entire course of the game. Well, we scored that goal. We scored the first goal of the game, and that was supposed to be our meal ticket. The whole game was going to be different, and we saw pretty quickly that scoring that one goal really didn't make that big of a difference. The U.S. came back, pegged 3-4 back, and then we finally put in a consolation goal. So I'm really unsurprised, disappointed, yeah, a little bit. I think there was a lot of frustration and anger after this game because I think it's a big part of that first goal that went in, and we sort of expected everything to solve itself and go differently, and it didn't go, and things didn't work out for us, and now we're scratching our heads going, oh well, we should have made it through this game, or we could have made it through this game. The reality is we probably shouldn't have, and we definitely shouldn't have, and we probably couldn't have, even under the best case scenario.
So what the people who talk about if this one thing would have changed are talking about now. It isn't about getting the good first goal. It's about the non-call on the penalty, right? Oh, if we would have got that penalty, it would have been 3-2, and that would have been a different game. Absolutely,
but you could play that through any game, and then the U.S. could go back. You could switch over to the U.S. side if we had pulled that out and gone and picked through. They missed this shot, they missed this shot, they missed this shot. And that sort of works both ways. We're expecting our players to execute 100% of their chances, and then at the same time holding all the U.S. things constant, assuming that they wouldn't have had any changes in luck, and they shouldn't have had 100% execution. Ideally, in any single soccer game, if there was 100% execution from attacking players, you'd see scores that were in the double digits on both sides. it's unrealistic to expect that.
And additionally, if I could pick up on that too, if you were to turn the tables around to the U.S. side as well, you could easily say if Crépeau doesn't make 4 or 5 absolutely fantastic saves, then the score is getting close to double digits, isn't it?
Yep.
Jeff, disappointed, not disappointed, expected it, didn't expect it? What's the view like from your perspective?
I guess I'll say, like, anytime that a Canadian national team loses, I just get completely crushed. I by like the 3/4 point of the match, by like the 65th minute, give or take, I'd already kind of accepted that we were doomed. But even still, after the final whistle went, I just had to leave my condo. I just had to get out and go do something and take my mind off of it, because I'm always just bummed out massively every time one of our national teams doesn't progress, doesn't make it as far as possibly they could. It was funny to me how absolutely lost we looked right after Daniil Henry went out injured. It's like Daniil Henry goes down with the, I guess it's a hamstring problem, wasn't it? I think it was a hammy problem.
It looked like he had a hamstring problem, but I'm not sure it's been confirmed yet.
Yeah, well, regardless, it looked like a hammy problem. But, the second that he was taken out of the match, we looked absolutely, completely lost. Like, we forgot what game we were playing on the field. I don't think we could maintain possession even in our own end for more than about 20 seconds for pretty well the rest of the first half after Daniil Henry went out. We just completely and utterly collapsed in on ourselves. I even tweeted out that watching that first half was like, after we scored, was basically like watching a building implode on itself in slow motion. It was just crumbling inwards constantly, and and after we got who replaced Henry again? It's tough to say his name.
Manrekar James.
Manrekar James, yeah. After James went in, I mean, he was no. Sorry, son, but you were no replacement for Daniil. Manrekar James just did not cut it. He had a horrible rest of the match. I mean, I'm sure his nerves were just killing him when he realized that he actually had to get out there, not being one of the starters. That's probably a very, very difficult situation to get into. But he could not pick up the slack, and I mean, the whole defensive line completely collapsed in. I mean, on the fourth goal, I think. Yeah, the fourth goal that the U.S. scored. You watched when they passed it to the one player who was open on the top right side of our box, and our entire back line just completely went with them and left everybody. And then one of our defensive midfielders, not Piet, but the who else was playing deep mid for us again? It was Piet and. Oh, goodness.
I remember his name. I'm not sure I can pronounce it.
Yeah. It almost sounded like Eusebio, but it wasn't Eusebio. It was very similar. Anyway, he completely floated along with the back line and left 2 of the Yank players wide open at the top of the box. And what the heck are we doing there? I mean, you can't do that. You can't do that. And we paid for so many defensive errors. And Jason DeVos tweeted after the match that, back in the day, we had to be defensively solid to stay in games because we had no attacking options. And it's funny, now that we actually have some attacking options, like, oddly enough, like Piet, and then like Alaman, Cavallini. Well, I know Cavallini was on this squad, but guys like Cavallini and that who have really shown up to be good attacking options for our national teams. Our defensive players have just completely bottomed out. Like, we had nothing. After Henry left the field, we had absolutely no answer. We had nothing defensively. It was just brutal. Once again, La Peña was getting absolutely torn apart on the left side. I can't remember how many times he got burned and they got crosses in because he just could not contain. I'm not sure if it was Louis Gill or who it was over on that one side for the Yanks, but yeah, La Peña couldn't contain him. So I don't know. Whatever, they're kids. This isn't the pinnacle of their careers. They still have a ways to go. Gotta support them no matter what, and just hope for the best in the future.
Just to, I think it's Mauro Eustachio is the
Stockfield,
guy.
yeah.
Is the guy who you're thinking of.
Yeah,
and actually to pick up on what you're saying, I found that to be, while I was watching the game, a little bit of a, I don't even know what it was. It was kind of messing with my head a little bit, in the sense that usually we defend and we defend and we defend, and we hope that we get the first goal. And then if we get that, we might be okay. If we don't, if we're down 1 or down 2, I don't think, we're not coming back because we just can't score. When we were down 4-2, I was still kind of thinking, if we score a goal, we could maybe eke out a tie here, because these guys can score. I mean, maybe that's a positive we can take from this. These guys can score. They weren't able to defend worth a crap, but maybe that's something that you can train them up for a little bit better. And of course, maybe I'm just trying to put a positive spin on what essentially is not very positive, a disappointing exit. So I guess we're going to see a lot more of these players in the future. So let's hope that the offensive production still continues to increase and they find some ways of plugging the holes on defense. Okay, so turning to the main issue in our program, the main topic in our program today, MLS First Kick, which is coming up on the 2nd, and we've got 3 Canadian teams, I suppose, at various levels of preparedness for this upcoming season. I think we're going to talk about TFC first, and we're going to give it to the scathing Jeff Salisbury, at least in terms of his opinion of TFC, but he comes by that honestly. Or I don't know if it's honestly or not, but he comes by it. We're going to go to him first for his thoughts on TFC's preseason and their prospects coming up in the league.
Oh boy, I don't know. That's quite the intro you had to give me there, because I have a sneaky feeling that Lars is going to end up having much more of a rage-filled diatribe on this than I am. I just think it's hilarious at this point. I just really enjoy watching TFC to see kind of what they're going to do. For instance, the signings that they made today, they signed Hogan Ephraim. Is that how you say his name? Is it Ephraim?
I'm honestly not sure how you pronounce it.
Larsy, do you know that one? Is it?
I think it's Hogan Ephraim.
Yeah, Hogan Ephraim.
Sorry,
yeah.
I'm looking at the rest of the roster here, so
oh God, I can't wait for that.
I was getting him confused with Logan Emery for a second because I was staring at Logan Emery's name.
Oh yeah. So anyway, they signed Hogan Ephraim.
Is it Hogan Ephraim or Ephraim Hogan?
It's Hogan Ephraim.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
It's
Wow.
Hogan Ephraim. Yeah.
Sorry.
It's not like Hulk Hogan.
No, I like how Ben Massey put out Hollywood Hogan Ephraim.
Yeah. I'm waiting for somebody to say Hogan, like the old Hogan's Heroes.
Yeah.
Don't worry, that'll be the entire South End there.
Yeah, Hogan.
He starts screwing up. It'll be.
Well, maybe he'll score, and they'll all say Hogan. Come on, let's put a positive spin on this.
Oh, are you kidding? Is there ever a positive spin on anything TFC?
Yeah, I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure a black hole would open up if somebody tried that. So.
Oh, I don't know. Their marketing department seems to put out a lot of positive spin.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yes.
How could they exist without spin doctors they have working in that office? But anyway, so yeah, TFC. Okay, number one, it is going to be TFC's in a race. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but TFC is in a race to see whether they can beat Chivas USA to the bottom this season. It's going to be tight. I think Chivas might actually have the edge because of their essentially racial signing system that they've put into place. Basically getting rid of half of their decent roster and filling it with a bunch of possibly less than able Hispanic players. Just saying that these guys probably aren't at the MLS level, yet they're still getting MLS contracts simply because they are Hispanic. And everybody knows that Chivas is doing this. So, heck, the league is... All the pundits in the league are doing it. And not to turn this into a Chivas USA segment, but back to TFC here. Number one, I think TFC is going to be the best thing that ever happens to Vancouver this season because of the home opener that the Caps get and have the luxury of being able to play a team that's probably not even going to have a full 18 on the available to them on Saturday. Yeah, really. I mean, who could ask for anything more when it comes to TFC? But not even having a full 18 probably for this Saturday. The signings that they just recently made seem like they're doing it basically in a panic to get warm bodies on the bench. I made the comment to Dan Squizzato over Twitter that they need to re-sign Rick Titus. So that's my blurb. You know what? You guys take it on TFC because I got enough saved up for Vancouver and Montreal.
Well, Lars, are they going to have enough to make up a full roster for the first game?
Oh, they'll have enough to make up a full roster, but whether they have enough quality to call it an MLS roster is a completely different story. I think they maybe have 8 or 9 players, including goalkeepers, that are actually capable of playing at an MLS level. And I think they have 23, 24 players on their roster right now. It's a little bit in flux. We don't know all their signings yet. Sometimes they've signed players, and I believe it was Steve Sandor pointed this out to me. It sometimes takes a week for this to come through. So they may have more players under contract, and we just haven't heard about it yet. But right now it's looking like they have 8 or 9 MLS-capable players and a bunch of youngsters who may or may not turn out to be MLS-capable. A bunch of guys who are, in the midst of their career who most definitely aren't capable of playing in the league. And it's really not looking too good for TFC, at least at the start of the season. It's going to be a long process. They've been clearing out all the salary cap room that they can to try and open up some space to bring in some quality players. But as it currently stands, I can't see them, at least in the first half of the season, posting too many wins. They might get their house in order by the summer transfer window, but it's looking pretty bleak. And I think that first game, Vancouver's probably going to win 3-0.
Yeah, that's a good prediction. I was going to say 2 or 3-0 for Vancouver in the first game.
Well, that sounds like a natural segue there. We may as well turn over to Vancouver, and they've had, the out of the 3 Canadian teams, Montreal seems to have been the most stable over the off-season. Vancouver's made a lot of changes there too. We'll go around the horn again in the same direction here. Jeff, do you want to start us off with Vancouver, and what do you think of their prospects?
Yeah. Well, first off, actually, I don't know. I would argue that Vancouver's been the most stable. Montreal, has had a complete coaching overhaul, whereas Vancouver stuck with Martin Rennie, which is a good choice because I do honestly believe that Martin has a clear direction for what he's trying to do with the squad. Obviously, they're building on not necessarily speed in defense, but rather solidarity and defensive composure, which is, I think, the number one reason why Martin Bonjour was sent au revoir. I think with the new striking options that they have, with Kekuta Mane, who I think is going to have an absolutely outstanding season. I honestly think that Mane is going to rival Darren Maddox for the number of goals that he gets, assuming that he doesn't have a flat opening to the season. If Mane can kind of produce a little bit early on and maintain a starting 11 spot, I could really see him rivaling Darren Maddox by the end of the season for the number of goals that he gets, because both players are extremely similar. And as they've stated, Mane is actually a little quicker even than Darren Maddox. He's even faster than Maddox, and I think Maddox was rated the fastest player in the league last year, possibly. They have nothing but speed up top. When it comes to midfield, they have Rio Coker now. They got Nigel Rio Coker. Nigel Rio Coker.
That doesn't really work. Too many syllables.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doot Rio Coker. That's the right number of syllables. Sorry.
Well, no. Have you seen that YouTube video of that? Was it a commercial, an English commercial that they actually fashioned a Rio Coker chant after?
Oh no.
Yeah.
I make it a habit of not searching up on Vancouver players if I don't have to.
Oh, yeah, you just like being a sadist and following that red scum out east, so...
Peasantry,
Okay.
actually, not scum. Peasantry.
Peasantry.
So, Jeff, we still got to finish your bid on the Caps here. I have a... Sorry, go ahead.
Town fool, I believe, or town drunkards, I think is better off.
Now, of course, you're going to have to... Well, maybe you won't have to change your tune, but it would be a real shock if TFC starts Osorio and Welshman up front and they both bag a brace against the Whitecaps. I would laugh really hard, I have to say, if they did. I'm not saying it's going to happen.
Yeah, but if we know anything about TFC's defense, they would let in 5.
Yeah, well, maybe they would, but we really haven't finished off the whole Whitecaps talk here. But I have a question to throw your way, Jeff, just to kind of. They really, July on last year, they kind of tanked, right? Not kind of tanked. They tanked. And I mean, they got to turn that around. Have they put enough pieces in place to turn that around, or are they still saddled with many of the same things that got them into that slump in the first place?
Well, I'll tell you one thing for sure. They sure as hell ain't going to do it with Kenny Miller still on the roster. I'm part of the Miller out camp. He's completely useless. I am sorry, but I mean, my one roommate Brendan and I we were watching a couple of the Whitecaps preseason matches, and I mean, what the heck? Why do they still have him? What's he making? $1.2 million, and he's sitting back and basically playing in the center of midfield almost most of the time. They're paying this guy $1.2 million to put the ball in the back of the net, not to sit back and play a bit part. While it's left up to Mane and Maddox to basically burn the opposition's D, which they are doing quite well, by the way, and I honestly think that each of them is probably going to be around 10 goals, maybe Maddox a few more. But anyway, what are they doing with Miller still? I'm sorry, but it's not Miller time now, nor has it ever been Miller time, as far as I'm concerned. They'll still be okay, even with Miller on the roster, but dear Lord, if he doesn't have as many goals as Darren Maddox does by the summer transfer window, he's gone. On a plane, see you later.
Well, Lars, do you think Jeff's kind of view of the Caps is accurate? Do you think they're going to full steam ahead, or do you think maybe he's got rose-colored glasses on himself?
I think he's got rose-colored glasses. It doesn't mean they're not going to be better off than Toronto is, though. They tanked July onwards. We already mentioned that. The changes that they've made to the roster, I'm not entirely convinced of. It was Nigel Rio-Coker, I believe we were talking about earlier. He's on his. He has an interesting career. He's gone from several great teams, made tons of appearances for them, and then in the last couple of years he's sort of fallen, I guess, to a lower level. And it actually kind of reeks of the same sort of Kenny Miller signing and the Scottish experiment and all that. They're bringing in he's not aging, I guess, he's 28, but they're bringing in someone who's kind of down on his luck from the championship, and they're going to try and revive his career and squeeze I guess some of the magic that he had in his career earlier out of him and try and turn that into success in MLS. I'm not convinced it's going to work. We've seen lots of players come from England, lots of players come from Scotland, from the Championship, from the Scottish Premier League, and they consistently fall flat in MLS. It's a completely different league with the time zones and all that. It's just like I don't think things may work out perfectly in Toronto with their new acquisition today.
Can I ask one question before you go on? Just one quick question. So how are you going to rate Rio-Coker's success as a player with the Caps? I'm curious.
That's a good question. It depends. It'll come down to assists. It'll come down to how he plays, I guess, box to box, or how he even plays on the wing. He's been known to play out on the wing. I believe that's what he is, isn't he? A winger?
I think he's traditionally been a little bit more of like a defensive midfielder. They always talk about the playing the same style of role that Claude Makelele used to play with Chelsea, playing that right up top of the D kind of floater. But yeah, he does play out on the wing every once in a while. He played out on the wing, I think, with Bolton.
Okay, yeah, maybe that's what I've gotten that confused with. But I guess with him, it's going to be with assists and how he calms the game down and how he controls the play through the middle of the field. So, so that's one acquisition. It may or may not work out. I don't know. With Vancouver, I haven't seen a whole lot of changes. There's been some they've had consistency with their roster. There's been a few changes, but nothing too significant. I'd say Montreal even more so follows that, and I think Montreal is going to have the best season.
And once again, we've got a natural segue here, so we may as well just keep rolling on.
We didn't plan this, folks. I swear to God.
No. Well, if we planned it, we carried it off so impeccably well.
I know.
That we should all just reach over, and give ourselves a pat on the back. But anyway, Montreal. I guess if you were to compare and contrast Montreal's season to Vancouver's season, last year, second half of the season is when Montreal started to charge. They put a string of games together where they weren't defeated, and they looked for a while like they might actually make the playoffs. They played very well. Do you think they're going to continue this, or do you think maybe there are going to be some growing pains with a new coach and a few new players? We'll go back around the other way. Lars, lead us off on this one.
Montreal. The only real question for me, actually, there's two questions: Jeb Brovsky and their new manager. And I think in our first podcast we talked about their manager,
Marco Chalibom.
Yes.
You just like saying that way too much.
I do.
The reality is Jeb Brovsky probably isn't starting quality. I've been having some discussions with
Agreed.
a friend of mine from Montreal. We may know him as Frederic Jean-Francois.
Oh, Freddie.
Yeah, Freddie. Freddie seems to insist that he's not of starting quality, but he will probably be starting because he's their only cover. I guess I believe it was for the left back position. So that's the one weakness I think that they have in their lineup. The rest of their lineup is, at least on paper, impeccable. They have Nesta, they have DeVio, they have Niasi. Pardon?
They have Matteo Ferrari in the back line. Honestly, I think Matteo Ferrari is the best player on that team. I think he is absolutely brilliant. I love him.
They have Patrice Bernier. They have a very solid team, and honestly, I think they're going to make playoffs this year without a doubt, assuming that their coach isn't completely insane, and they're just going to blow us all away. Like Davy Arnaud, another quality player. He's been in MLS a very long time. You have that pair in the midfield with Bernier and Arnaud, and you have Nesta, you have Ferrari, Niasi. Like, to me, this is quintessentially a MLS playoff roster, and provided they get their tactics right and there isn't too much meddling from Joey Saputo, they're gonna make playoffs, and they're probably gonna take the Canadian Championship.
So I think that's Jeff's signal to jump in here, because Lars, you just kind of slagged one of his favorite people on earth. In Joey Saputo. So first of all, I've got to give Jeff a chance to kind of drool over him for a second.
Yeah, I love you.
And then hopefully he has a chance to offer us some insight. So Montreal.
Joey Saputo, greatest MLS owner ever. Love you, Joey. Just never a dull moment with Joey Saputo. Maybe the guys out in Montreal think I'm totally bat crazy. You notice I made that G-rated, but
well done.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Lars, one point I totally agree with is as long as Chalobah doesn't try to forcefully impose a system, aka Aaron Winter style, on the Impact and the way that they play. And so far I haven't seen it. So far the Impact still play quite similar to how they did last year. However, they have a few extra cogs in the well, what's the saying I'm looking for? Cogs in the wheel? No, that's not right. Help me out here, fellas.
Pieces of the puzzle?
Pieces of the puzzle. Sure, let's move that direction. Oh my goodness, that's definitely.
We're going to start a new
How about
podcast called
Pieces of the Wheel, or maybe
Cogs of the Puzzle.
puzzle.
We're going to call this Malapropisms Weekly next time. Yeah.
Okay, so
that is.
oh
That's
my
okay.
God.
That's okay.
So yeah, like I was saying, they have some new pieces to the wheel that are definite improvements over what they had last year.
We're slapping ourselves in the back here over this.
Actually, we might slap ourselves in the face over this part. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, the guys like Andrea Pisanu, they have Pisanu up top there, who I think is going to be an offensive threat. Patrice Bernier is still an offensive threat. They are going to have Felipe as an offensive threat still. Davy Arnaud can be an offensive threat. Hopefully, Marco Di Vaio maintains the scoring numbers that he started to build up near the end of the season, and this goes against every grain of my being. Goes against every gain of my being.
Nice.
That Justin Mapp actually looked like he might have regained some of his competence and confidence as a player on this team. Because in preseason, he actually didn't have that bad of a preseason. He was actually passing the ball to Marco Di Vaio, which is got to be a complete 180 degree turn for him from what he was like last year. And he even I can't remember if he scored one. Yeah, he scored the tying goal in the game against Columbus to win the Mickey Mouse Cup for them. My God, if Justin Mapp can actually pick up and be a offensive threat like he was in the first part of Montreal's season last year, they have offensive weapons on that team that know how to put the ball in the back of the net. They're going to really take the East by storm, I think. I think Montreal is going to be battling out for top of the East by the end of the season, to tell you the truth.
Okay, so Montreal, good. Vancouver,
good.
Maybe good.
Good.
Toronto, not so good, if we could sum all that up.
Toronto, not good at all.
Atrocious.
Okay, so let's
At the
Is-
best, they will be second last.
Yeah, they'll be fighting Chivas USA to see who's second last all year. They are an embarrassment to the country, but that's beside the point.
Okay, well, let's go back to Montreal and kind of finish this off because, if we're high on Montreal, and besides the coaching situation, which might be a rocky or sore point, perhaps, but there's no indication that it will be yet, I don't think. Are there any weaknesses that you see which might eventually be their downfall where they won't achieve quite as high? Lars, let's go to you first.
Age. Hands down, age. They have a lot of aging players in Montreal. And if it goes late in the season, maybe their guys get tired, and maybe they're not as good as they are, or as they should be. And I think that's their only real weakness. They're very loaded up on guys who have had really good careers, but are on the downside of that career. So I think that's the only place I can see Montreal going wrong with this.
Jeff, you something the same or something new?
Something new, forcing the play to Marco Di Vaio because they feel they have an obligation to do so. You kind of saw hints of that last season, where maybe Di Vaio wasn't the best option for them to have tried to play a ball to. And they tried it anyway, and then they lost possession. And Di Vaio doesn't track back. He doesn't really track back. He doesn't play. He doesn't try to regain the ball really after an errant pass doesn't make it to him. He just kind of, sulks back. I'm really 50-50 on Di Vaio, and I think that if they try to force the play to him too much out of perhaps some type of sense of obligation, maybe they won't perform as well against teams as they possibly could. The other thing is avoiding injuries, and guys like Nesta and Ferrari, especially Nesta and Ferrari, If Nesta and Ferrari are ever out at the same time, man, are they going to leak goals at the back? Holy lick, because they have no defensive depth. I am sorry, but they have one line of D, and that doesn't include Jeb Brofsky, because he's atrocious. But yeah, they have Ferrari and Nesta in center back, and then who's playing right back for them right now? I should know this. Oh goodness, too many brain freezes tonight, brain farts if you will. Can't do it, but
so we need to stick to a different schedule. 2 weeks.
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe.
MLS starting kind of threw a wrench in everything.
It did, yeah. But yeah, if their back line loses a single guy, they are going to leak some goals. So they better hope that they can bang them in just as quick as they can leak them. So
I might steal the last word on this. And this kind of goes a little bit along with what both of you said. Maybe it combines them in a way. Age certainly is an issue, but I wonder if foot speed on the back line is also an issue. I'm not sure who I was reading the other day, but they said their back line is long on guile, short on speed. And if you come up against teams with a lot of speed in their forward line, then that might be an issue. But the thing is about that, I mean, they've got some brilliant players with brilliant careers who are not going to be easy to beat, even if they are a little longer in the tooth. So foot speed might not be an issue, but I could see it potentially being an issue, perhaps.
okay, here's a question I have for you two. If MLS went to some type of single table, who finishes ahead of who finishes ahead of who, and what places do they finish?
You mean in terms of the three Canadian teams?
Yeah, but like overall in the league, how high would each team finish, do you think?
No, I have no idea. I would have to look at that a lot closer.
Yeah,
I'll throw the first one out. I will say that Vancouver would finish 7th, Montreal would finish 10th, and TFC would be second last, would be in 18th, with only Chivas USA behind them. So
that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when I mean, there are some teams who may or may not perform at the level that they did last year. The Galaxy were an interesting team to watch last year. They started off very poor, and then it's like somebody flipped a switch and they just motored their way into playoffs. I don't know if you remember, but they were on the bottom or second bottom of the West for the first couple of months, and then all of a sudden they just started to motor, and away they went. I'm not sure if that was by design or not. Maybe they were saving their energy the first half of the season. It seemed to pay off for them anyway.
They're also they won't have Donovan for a good chunk of this season, which is going to be interesting.
Yeah,
because Donovan's on his self-imposed exile from soccer, so that's going to be very interesting. The West has traditionally been stronger than the East. That's at least in the past 4 or 5 years. You have Real Salt Lake, Houston. I'm just trying to think. LA, of course.
Isn't Houston
Seattle.
Houston's in the East.
Oh, they might be in the East now. They do these rearrangements every other year, but Houston has traditionally been in the West.
Seattle too. Hey, Seattle's always strong.
Yeah. I think Seattle's going to win the West. I'll tell you right now. I think Seattle wins the West this year.
Really?
Yeah.
I can see
that's
it.
bold.
Yeah, I think Seattle wins the West, and I'm going to say that Houston wins the East.
I'll say Houston wins the East for sure. They're good enough.
Yeah.
Maybe there's Kansas City.
No,
Kansas
City's
City's pretty good.
They lost guys like Espinosa who were really linchpins in their offense, and they lost Kai Kamara as well. They lost a couple of very important pieces to their wheel, and I just don't see them being as strong this year as they were last year. Last year was their year to win the whole thing, and they blew it against Houston, who is just a completely different squad in the MLS Cup playoffs. So, I see Houston winning the East, and Seattle winning the West. I just can't see it happening any other way. I don't think San Jose is going to be as strong this year either. Even though I took Wando as my captain and striker on my MLS fantasy team.
Yeah, I took him as that as well. Yeah. I think anyone with a brain took Wando.
Yeah, that's
kind captain and striker.
Yeah. Kind of a no-brainer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, we've kind of digressed from our original topic, but
we're still talking MLS.
Well, sure we are. Just not about the 3 teams that we were supposed to be talking about. That's okay. Go ahead, Jeff.
One last. Can we throw one last topic here? Ottawa NASL announcement. Ottawa Fury SC. Thoughts?
Yes. I'm just glad there's another professional team. I like the name of the Fury. I don't see why they wouldn't have even suggested changing it in the first place. Just keep it as is. And hopefully this means more Canadian guys playing more minutes, developing more, and feeding into MLS or overseas.
Yep.
I'm probably unique here in the sense that I've actually attended a fair number of their matches. I used to live in Ottawa. They've actually changed the name slightly from Fury SC to Fury FC. So.
Is it FC now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought they were still using the SC because I think their Twitter handle still has SC in it instead of FC.
I think they may have changed it recently. I don't know, but
okay.
No, they're definitely using FC for the NASL team. But I like the fact they kept the Fury handle. Keeps the tradition of the team that's there. Could they have picked something better? Probably. Who cares? It's what's familiar with the locals. And it's just another pathway for young Canadian players who are looking to get into the professional game here at home.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not sure who does the tweeting for the FC Edmonton supporters for that FCESG Twitter handle, but he's hilarious. And the proposed nickname for them is the Nick Furies.
Jesus. That's pretty good, actually. I like that.
Brilliant. Yeah, I thought it was brilliant. Yeah, they're the Nick Furies of the NASL.
Jeez.
Hat tip to the FCESG for that one. That's a beaut. All right, so as promised, we're going to announce this episode the winner of the inaugural From the Black Hole hashtag challenge. And the very first winner happens to, and believe me, this is not an inside job by any means, but it happens to be Mr. at JoJoFlow25, better known as Jordan Kellerman, right from Regina. He definitely tipped the scales with a beauty he tweeted way earlier on in February, which ran to the tune of this. Tuesday's game proved U.S. men's national team is as safe making it to the World Cup as Charlie Davies is driving you home after a party.
Jeez.
That's,
anything.
If it was me deciding, it was like, that's way offside.
Oh, that was a beauty. I love it. So Jordan wins himself a 6-pack of his favorite beer, courtesy of From the Black Hole. I might have to crack each one and spit in it first, just to let him know that we love him that much. So, but yeah, we had a lot of entries actually from outside of Saskatchewan, which was nice. Just so happened that Jordan was wearing the best wit of all early on. So, now that of course brings us to the next hashtag challenge we're gonna put into motion, and so. This one is definitely relevant to our favorite Canadian club of all, Toronto FC, and what we're looking for here is the best, the funniest, wittiest tweet using the hashtag TFC roster is like. Just because we know how excellent TFC's been doing with building their roster and getting prepared for this new MLS season, we're really curious to find out what people believe TFC's roster is like. So that hashtag, of course, again, is TFC roster is like. So the winner of this one, once again, will get themselves a free 6-pack of their favorite beer, courtesy of From the Black Hole. And in another month's time, we're going to announce the winner of this one. So you have a full month to try and bring out the best you possibly can And make sure to get those hashtag tweets into us as often as you can.
And that brings us to the end of From the Black Hole, episode 4. Thanks very much for listening. We're going to have an extended break between now and our next podcast, since the turnaround on this one was so tight. We'll be back sometime in the middle of March. So until then, take care.